They're capturing the HQ. Go!
I wonder if in like 10 years we'll hear a bunch of older content creators talking about the good old days of Fortnite and how their channels started like everyone else's making the Fortnite contents. Because for my generation of YouTubers, pretty much everyone's channel began in 2011 making Call of Duty videos. Okay, boomer. Yo, more like okay, zoomer with their Fortnites and their TikToks. At least we had Vine. Vine was pretty cool, man. So when I heard tell of a new Call of Duty going back to where it all began, the behemoth that started it all, I says to myself, color me interested. I want to quickly thank Activision for sending me a copy of Modern Warfare on the PC to dig into. Now that I've had a chance to sit down with the game for a good while, I have some thoughts, many thoughts. First, Modern Warfare has the potential to be the absolute best Call of Duty since the original Black Ops, with the right tuning and better maps, and I really mean that. Second, the game is confused as to what type of game it actually wants to be, and third, Modern Warfare in its current state features very high highs and the absolute depths of depravity at its lows. Let's hit on the first bit. You would have to be living under a rock to have not heard about how gloriously bad the Modern Warfare map pool is currently, and yeah, they're pretty aimless. But beyond that, there were a lot of things I didn't like about this game during my first week of playing it. Claymore spam, camping, slow base movement speed, broken audio, killstreak spam, insane sightlines, Piccadilly, installing shaders, cutscene stutter, Piccadilly, spec ops, installing shaders, Piccadilly. But then I realized I actually kind of love this game. Because when you're on one of the game's lesser than horrific maps, which is like 2 maps in the game, it's actually a ton of fun. And it sort of, I kind of understand. I don't understand what they were doing. And I don't really know why that I started liking the game after the first week, but I think it's because it's an actual throwback to kind of a base COD. Straightforward unlocks for the weapons, even if a lot of the challenges are broken. No wall running, no champion system, no loot box season pass thingamajiggy, crossplay, and the willingness to kind of take a risk. Although, I don't know, would you guys categorize going back to the roots a risk for Activision at this point for Call of Duty? Like, to me, I sort of think that's the safe play they've been avoiding for a long time, and they're like, all right, we've got a new generation of Call of Duties to put out. We need to push something here for these folks that are going to set the tone for the next decade. So let's actually get into the different sectors of the game. Campaign! So here's the thing with campaign. I've been hearing it's actually fairly awesome. And it's not super long, but it's a really fun experience. It's got some intense moments, some controversial things, and most critics have generally liked it. Now, the reason I'm talking about other critics and not myself is because there is cutscene stutter galore on PC. It's a known issue. The developers have talked about it. They're saying they're working on a fix, and even though we're 2 patches in, that fix has not yet been deployed. Many NVIDIA and AMD users have experienced this crazy cutscene stutter and lag, which has desync associated with it. And what's even crazier is if you watch the cutscenes from the actual cutscene menu, they play perfectly. It's only when you're going through the campaign. Like I said, the developers know it's a bug. They're working on fixing it, and as such, every time I try and hop in to play the campaign, my immersion is completely broken as these cutscenes are absolutely gorgeous and I want to know what's going on in the story, and I just am going to wait until it's actually fixed. From a gameplay perspective, the missions have seemed fun so far, but for full transparency, I only got 4 missions in, and I kind of want to play this experience the way it's meant to be played, not with a bunch of hiccups left, right, and center. Speaking about the PC version of the game, let's talk about some other things. There's plenty of broken sound effects when you get into the high player count game modes, especially Ground War. Once there's enough kill streaks in the air, you will hear sounds do horrible, horrible things. Footsteps just stop hearing, making noise, whatever. And in the sky, when the airplanes are dropping their bombs and doing their things, it just will break halfway through. You hear, and it's gone, just like that. Additionally, on PC, we still have the reinstalling shaders bug, which again, the developers know about. And every time you boot the game, or it's sort of at a random interval, you can even be playing the game for a few hours and back out of the lobby, and oh, look at that, it's reinstalling the shaders once again. Needless to say that the PC version has some rough edges right now. And that's a really tough thing to stomach for a $60 game because most PC players are used to not paying $60 for a game like this. But outside of the cutscenes, oh my gosh, the campaign is drop dead gorgeous. It's playing at 1440p, easily getting all the frames needed on max settings. The only thing I don't have available to me is that ray tracing, which I've heard is pretty fantastic. So maybe 2020 is the year to get myself one of those RTX cards. If you play Call of Duty solely for the campaign, do note that the campaign clocks in around 6 to 7 hours. However, it is being praised quite highly. And frankly, it's really nice to actually see that they're bringing campaigns back into the loop. Black Ops 4 was cool last year, don't get me wrong, but I think Call of Duty games, being the giant blockbusters that they are, sort of need a campaign, sort of need something like that, especially from the marketing perspective. It's just part of the whole Call of Duty deal, dude. We'll have to see if Modern Warfare sets the trend for next year's Black Ops 5 or whatever it is. Let's talk about that multiplayer. So here is where it's going to be hit or miss. For legacy Call of Duty players, you'll be happy to hear that there's no wall running. We're back to a very basic style of gameplay loop here. Plenty of weapons that are lethal at crazy ranges. And on the right maps, there can be fast gameplay. However, the current map pool is amorphous. The maps lack purpose, and I think it's from the intention of the developers to create maps that allowed new players to get a grasp of their surroundings before dumping them right into the combat, ditching the typical 3-lane map style for these sort of amorphous blobs that lack any sort of direction or motive. As such, in most of the game modes within Modern Warfare, the match pacing is incredibly slow because of these big maps. Not only that, certain power positions on the map have incredible amounts of sightlines. Like, maps should always have a risk reward in regards to where you are positioned. You shouldn't be able to control all lanes of traffic from one particular vantage point. And within Modern Warfare, at least the current maps that they're playing right now, for the traditional game modes, your TDMs, headquarters, domination, you have ridiculously strong power positions that let players cover so many sight lines without much cost or risk to the player that you add to a lack of incentive for player movement, i.e. many of the complaints about players camping. That was a really long way to say, yes, it's very easy to hold up, pop a squat, hold down some sight lines, and not be punished for it. However, I did wait to get this video out to play enough of the game that I actually got to see some of the new maps in the pool. And you have Operation Shoot House, or whatever it's called, the Nuketown of this map. Small 3-lane map, and it's an absolute blast to play. Seriously, this multiplayer, once it gets some good traditional maps in the pool, I could see this being the best Call of Duty in many years. The biggest thing holding it back is just the bad map design, man. The lack of incentive for movement on these maps is magnified greatly when you're playing on mouse and keyboard. I mainly play PC FPS games these days. And if you didn't know, with Modern Warfare, if you plug a controller into the PC version, you can cross-play with Xbox One and PlayStation 4 players, which is ridiculously cool. But on the mouse and keyboard side, the problem of locking down sight lines and not moving is amplified greatly. The moment I plugged the controller back in and started playing with the console crowd, the game became far more mobile and more akin to a traditional Call of Duty pace, like match pacing that I'm used to. So then let's talk about the second point, that Modern Warfare is kind of confused as to what kind of game it wants to be. Call of Duty has traditionally always been the arcade FPS game. That's the way that I've viewed it over the last decade. It's incredibly easy to pick up for new players, but also allows veterans and longtime series players to hop into lobbies, perform well, and rack up those big kill streaks. I think over the years, the game has done a really good job of being able to foster in a wide range of player types. However, with Modern Warfare, it seems to be a focus on so many different kinds of gameplay. In Ground War, you sort of have this Battlefield Light-esque experience on larger maps with vehicles. And as fun as that game mode is, and I've played quite a bit of it, I actually think it's maybe one of the shining beacons of the best game modes in Modern Warfare right now, again, outside of the maps. It still didn't match up to Battlefield. Every time I was playing, I was just thinking to myself, well, I kind of wish I was playing Battlefield 4 for this type of experience. Not that I'm disappointed that's included in Modern Warfare, it's cool, but what game mode was the core gameplay loop balanced around? We then have the new 2v2 gunfight, limited respawn, and very much like a match of paintball. You and your duo partner go up against another 2, weapon cycle on each round, and it seems to be very tactics oriented. Again, was this the mode that Modern Warfare was designed around? The traditional 6v6 and 5v5 style game modes can lead to 12-minute matches where the top fragger only has like 13 or 14 kills. And at least be wondering, what is the core experience that Modern Warfare developers want you to experience? And I think the answer is all of the above. They want a game where you can experience tactical style gameplay, also still have the arcade, fast-paced Call of Duty traditional gameplay loop, but hey, we've got giant new ground war operations with vehicles and a billion sight lines and now verticality in the buildings. And upon launch, I think you can see and feel that confusion, that lack of direction. It doesn't feel like there is any single game mode that is incredibly polished with all aspects working perfectly in unison. That's a lot of planes to try and land on a single airstrip. However, on my second week of playing this game, it became clear that with the correct maps, I think they can make every single one of those different game modes work effectively. And with tuning, Modern Warfare is not far away from being a COD game, the first COD game in many years that I could see myself playing for the next 10 to 12 months, because it satisfies that traditional classic Call of Duty itch for me. It goes back to the elements that I loved most a decade ago. Activision's moving away from that loot box style and no season pass for drip feed content. In the Battle Pass era, drip feed content is here to stay, meaning that the game's going to be receiving regular updates and a huge stream of maps coming to the game over the next, 10 months. A giant leaked list of maps make it seem to indicate that there is going to be a ridiculous amount of maps coming to this game, with plenty of classics, more traditional Call of Duty sized maps to the pool, and I cannot wait for that. However, you do have to be okay with drip feed content, as developers' goal is now for that long-term engagement.
Spec Ops.
I haven't had the time to play it. I've heard it's incredibly lackluster. Back in Modern Warfare 2, I played so many of the co-op missions with my good friends. However, I've heard this new iteration is not that great, but frankly, I've just been sinking my teeth into the multiplayer. So most critics not super into Spec Ops. I'll give it a shot here, but when you rip me away from multiplayer first. All right, so overall, Modern Warfare, it's confusing. Honestly, the first week, I was not happy with the game whatsoever. I thought that it just looked like a mess of design ideas. I couldn't tell who the target audience was, what they were trying to do, why arcade COD needed to go for a more realistic tone, or why they needed this larger maps, and who on earth was this game created for, and what game mode was this game actually balanced around, and a whole lot more. But as I kept playing it, I think there is huge potential here, and it's actually quite fun if you're on the correct maps. The game actually feels to me like it could be the best Call of Duty in years. It's a shame it doesn't come out of the gate like swinging as hard as it could for like a perfect impression, but the developers have been very vocal on Twitter, and it seems like the pace of updates so far has been good, which means, yeah, I could be in this one for the long haul. At the $60 price tag, though, you have to question what it's worth for you. If you've been a lapsed Call of Duty player and you're thinking about coming back, I would really weigh into the equation the fact that the game could use a couple more maps and a few more tuning passes before it's going to be something that brings back everybody who has left the franchise over the last, forever. But yeah, it's an interesting time for FPS games, seeing a reboot from Call of Duty back to the core principles. I wonder if we will start seeing that appear in other mainline FPS series. Let me know what you're thinking about Modern Warfare down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video. Thanks for being patient with me. Like I said, I don't try and rush these out. There's been so many games that come out that I want to put enough time into them to do these videos justice. So subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed. Hit the little alarm bell to make sure you don't miss the next upload. Follow me over on Twitter at BBKDragoon. Have a good rest of your day, and I will see you again next time.
Unit Charlie. Enemies taking Bravo. We're on Delta. Stand by.